Good evening. This is Hari Kiran, founder of Indic Academy, and I'm here with Michel Denino, and we want to make a brief announcement. And this conversation is about a new initiative that together we are undertaking. And now I request Michel to give a background about this new endeavor.
So thank you, Hari. And this is basically about the attempt which I made, especially in the first decade of this century, to create a network and possibly eventually an institution. So the network worked to a large extent. The institution didn't work so well, though it did some work also. Maybe because the time hadn't come, or maybe because I didn't put in enough efforts, or maybe because I do not have your kind of skill in institution building. But however, the network took shape and took shape very well out of a sense of frustration or inadequacy and sometimes injustice, which I perceived increasingly in the 1990s. As I was getting more and more out of my shell, we were doing some work in a secluded place in the Nilgiris of Tamil Nadu, and all that was going very well. But then I got gradually in touch with more and more Indians, some of them very eminent, distinguished in their own fields, others very ordinary. And I could perceive that, it was an education process for me, that there was something basically very wrong, deeply flawed, because to put it in a nutshell, and this was one of the starting points of this International Forum for India's Heritage, everybody can see that India has a colossal heritage. Let's not even try to define it today. That's not the point. But it is deep, it is profound, it is wide, it is rich, it is diverse. Yet there is a total aberration in this country, which to some extent is continuing, which is that young Indians are not exposed to this legacy of the past, this inheritance, something that countless Westerners have come to study, to admire, whether they were scholars, the Indologists, or whether they were ordinary visitors to India. And therefore, this sense that India has, as we've been told by one great figure after another, Swami Vivekananda, Sri Aurobindo, Swami Dayananda Saraswati, with whom you have been so closely associated, and I was privileged to meet and discuss with him a number of times. And he was one of the initiators of this International Forum for India's Heritage. They've all told us that India has a mission for the world, not just for herself. Of course, she has to first regenerate herself on new foundations after the end of the colonial era, but then she also has a whole mission for the world, because these values which India nurtured, explored, cultivated, transmitted, protected in many ways, those values are not for Indians alone, they are for whoever wants them. So therefore, I could sense, in many disciplines, when I was contacting great figures and when I was discussing with Pujya Swamiji, that this aberration, we had to try to do something for it. And of course, individually, a lot of people were working hard in their own way, in their own field. So the idea which took possession of me was, can we not create a platform when we bring them together? Because I noticed that many of them were ignorant of the efforts that others were doing, sometimes even in their own field. So I thought I could perhaps be an instrument in creating such a platform. And I started contacting people. We had a kind of a charter, which was there till recently on our website, but I think the website is a bit defunct. We will discuss this another time. There was a charter, which I will share with you, which defined very clearly our objectives. And it was all turned in a positive manner, as positively as possible, which is that basically nobody should have the right to deny an Indian child his or her rightful inheritance. So, Tilak said, Swaraj is my birthright, but we said in 2002, 2001, perhaps the effort became concrete, and then by 2002 we created the trust. We said that, India's inheritance, India's tremendous legacy is my birthright. And therefore, how do we make this a reality? So we contacted intellectuals, people dealing with politics, but not as active politicians, except for one or two, rather dealing with policy making. We contacted artists, we contacted writers, we contacted journalists, and so on. And the documents which we prepared, with whom I approached, all of them was usually very, very warmly welcome. I think out of 200 letters I must have sent, of course, some were not answered, but very, very few, perhaps 2 or 3, answered that, what you are doing is something I disagree with. Even then, the disagreement was qualified. It was not vehement. So with this collection of, and I think it was more than 130, eventually I'll send you the full list. It was probably over 140 very eminent scholars, activists, thinkers, artists, and so on, agreed to come together and create this platform. And one of the first things we did was to write a kind of a petition to the then president, to the then prime minister, who was Atal Bihari Vajpayee, to the then minister of education. And we outlined the entire problem of Indian education, which was central to the concern of this organization. And we said that a new education policy needs to be devised that will give its rightful place to that inheritance, those great Indian values, and also those thought systems, and so on. So I will not give names. You will share the entire.
Yeah, I will be sharing it.
Yes, but I started working more closely with a few of them. Some programs were designed. Some seminars were held in Delhi and other places, and all of them are very high quality. And we still are trying to publish the proceedings because they are kind of timeless in their own right. And all of that took place. And at some point, when we had a big convention in Delhi, presided over by Swami Dayananda Saraswati, this was coincident with his World Congress for the Preservation of Religious Diversity. And he inaugurated the whole platform. And we had a lot of inputs from, I think, about 50 members of that forum were there. And it was decided to give it also a formal background, so that we could formally function whenever necessary. Because an informal network, an informal platform has certain advantages, and it survived. But then at some point, it becomes a little, too loose and not very functional. So we thought, we explored, and some were in favor of a society and so on. A lot of ideas were floated around. Finally, we decided for a trust, and this trust was created in Delhi and then transferred to Coimbatore when I shifted to Coimbatore. And we did a number of things. For example, we did it in 2005, and here I should acknowledge the help of my young friend Pramod Kumar, who is now with Amrita University and who participated also in the elaboration of the network. We did a project for NCERT, which was to examine the cultural content in Indian education. And we interviewed 12,000 or 11,000 students in 9 Indian languages. There was an elaborate questionnaire. We gave a very detailed report. All of this is somewhere on the net to NCERT, and we made recommendations out of the students' own voice for changes in the education system. And I'm very glad that the new education policy, now renamed National Education Policy, actually echoes a lot of the concerns that were submitted to NCERT. There were a few other minor projects. There was a more major project which was conceptualized, but it is not yet complete. But to cut a long story short, I was not able, because I had a lot of other occupations, writing, and then I went into the educational system myself. I started teaching, and I was not able to really sustain the institution in a meaningful way, and therefore I requested you rather, to take it over and perhaps give it a second life. Because much of the things that we conceptualize and aspire to do are things that you have been doing, within Indic Academy. So that's the short of the long.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michel. This is a very auspicious day. First is today is the birthday of Pujya Swamiji. That's the first thing, and second, like I was mentioning to you, this was inaugurated with his blessings in December 2001, and it was inaugurated in the Global Diversity, Religious Diversity Conference. And coincidentally, we had set up a Center for Global Polytheism and Indigenous Traditions. I didn't know about this conference, and Swamini pointed out, saying that this is Swamiji was started this. So there are so many intersections of so many things that happen, and more importantly, the fact that this kind of an intent was there 20 years back, and this kind of a collective was formed of all the intellectuals and artists and academics, activists. All these people came together to revive our heritage. I felt that intent should not go waste. I felt that I should do something about it. I'm going to now post this. I'm going to reach out to all of them. I see that substantially many of them are there that for me to reach out to. I'm going to write a personal letter. Together we can write a personal letter about this transition, and tell them that dreams don't die. Dreams don't die. We should keep dreaming, and we should continue to aspire to revive our culture.
And it was a little more than a dream at the same time, because some of our objectives have become far more real today after 20 years. And even though the institution, the trust, remains small and its activities remain on a smaller scale, relatively speaking, nevertheless, a lot of things were done through this network, which would not have been possible otherwise. So a lot of people, got confidence because, and also we became a kind of a center for, providing resources. And a lot of people would contact me or other founder members of IFI saying that, we want to organize an event on this theme, please advise us. So it was a ferment. And as such, it was well worth the effort. It acted as a ferment, and ferments take their own time to
yes
to rise to the desired level.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome, Hari. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.